This video marks the first step towards finishing the empty shell of what will be our custom dream bathroom.
This looks like some sort of spaghetti machine.
And that is a fully waterproof shower. I'll go through the entire install from bare framing to flood tested and ready for tile. This is my first time doing one of these systems, so it wasn't without a few hiccups.
Can I make it one more turn? Should I go one more turn? I hope I don't regret it.
The upside though is that you can learn from this if you're planning a tiled shower.
Almost had a total disaster there. I put the pieces in. We have not installed drywall yet, but today I'm going to call technically the first day of shower install because I am mocking stuff up and figuring out how this is all going to lay out when the drywall's on, and hopefully get everything right because I don't want to be tearing drywall out to fix any mistakes. We're going to be doing a LATICRETE full shower system. We're also going to have radiant heat here in the shower and on the bathroom floor, niches in the walls, and I'm going to take you along for the whole ride. LATICRETE was kind enough to send out the materials for this project, and I'm going to do my best installing them and explaining my thought processes on what the heck I'm doing. Mind you, I've only ever done one tiled shower before in my mom's bathroom renovation. I thought it turned out pretty well, but this is definitely a much more advanced project, and I'm doing quite a bit of learning as I go as well. But the first step here is actually in the carpentry realm. We're framing out for these niches. We have a 4x6 foot shower pan that I'm standing in, and I want the niches to be directly underneath the shower head. We actually have two shower heads, one on either side of the 4-foot dimension. We want the niche right below that. We've actually offset the shower valve to the inside towards the door so that we can easily turn the shower on from standing outside of it, and it doesn't interfere with the niche. I went ahead and framed this out real quick off camera just to get my bearings. It just so happened that the 24-inch mark where my shower head is was directly in the middle of this stud bay just by pure luck. So thankfully I could just add these two 2x, and that's all I had to do. Here's my preformed niche. Slides in there nicely and it's good to go. It's all centered up. Mixing valves over here. The hard part is going to be the other side. Here, this is roughly where it's got to be centered with the shower head, and there is a 2x6 stud right in the way. I put this little temporary support here for the piping. I knew when I was piping this that this was going to be an issue. That's why I kind of blocked this out. But I'll remove this and work some other type of support for this pipe in. I think I'm going to have to come all the way across with the 2x6, all the way across over here, avoiding these pipes, notching out where I need to. And then I'll put the vertical pieces between those horizontals. And by the power of film magic, I found my 2x6s, cut them, and I've temporarily braced my wall here, which I'm going to be cutting through this one stud. Both the bottom and the top of the stud are basically going to be free dangling until I get these headers in there solid. So I just took some 1x, screwed it across multiple studs to brace these tops and bottom sections temporarily, and I'll be able to get my framing in then. I will have to do some notching around these pipes before I can truly get everything going, but this shouldn't be too terrible. We'll see. Always when I'm doing something important. Well, that was a little bit tedious getting that dialed in right, but finally got her. Oh, I still got to take my brace off the back, but I did somehow manage to cut this just a hair short, but nothing a couple little composite shims couldn't fix. And this little left piece here was interesting. I had to kind of carve this thing out for the pipe to have clearance, notch this guy here, and to give it a little bit of strength back, I scabbed on a piece of 3/4 inch plywood underneath. This is obviously not a load-bearing wall. None of the interior walls in here are load-bearing, and that is also evidenced by this giant mistake up here. That's what these two scabs are. If you remember all the way back to our DWV video, I originally ran this vent straight up, and it jogged over right there, actually where those two lines are. And then I realized that I have to do all this shower valve stuff and niche stuff here, and that wasn't gonna work. After I bored that hole in there and I'm cutting it even larger to get the 45 in there, I realized that this is right about the spot that I'm going to need a shower niche. And so I'm gonna have to put horizontal tube eyes in here, and this pipe is gonna make that kind of a pain. This is just one of the many plumbing lessons I feel like I'm gonna learn through this project after everything's all glued together. Here's a note for the future remodeler. So I relocated the jog to down there, and that was a project by itself. But now the fruits of that labor are finally realized, and that we can have a niche right under our shower head with an off-centered valve. The idea being here, your curb is like, you know, right here, and you can just easily reach in, turn the shower on, you're not in it. And the same goes for this one over here. Fun fact, Elena and I like to take very different temperature showers. She prefers somewhere around a molten lava. I like just a normal, you know, warm water. So that is part of the reason why we put 2 shower heads in, and we purposely got Delta mixing valves that have a dual function control. There's 2 handles on it, basically one for flow and one for temperature. So you can just leave the temperature set where you want it and only turn the flow on and off. That is what we plan to do. We will each have our own shower head that we will just leave the temperature exactly where we want it and do not have to be messing with the hot setting, because it is too much for me with her ridiculously hot showers. Fast forward a few weeks, we got our Sega up, we got drywall on, and now it's time to tackle the shower before we finish the ceiling drywall in the bathroom while we still have access down there to connect this drain up. When I dry fit my pan, I ran a marker around the center drain flange cutout. Now I just need to cut this out of the subfloor so that we have easier access for this pipe when we need to cut it. Jeez, how do I get this donut out now? These are the types of things in construction that really slow you down. Oh my gosh. Come on. There we go. I marked a line flush with the subfloor. The spec on this drain is that the pipe must get cut 1.75 inches below the level of the floor. So I'm going to do that from below. It'll be easier just to zip it off with the multi-tool down there. I could do it from above with an inside pipe cutter. It looks like a little saw blade for the end of a drill. I can cut it from the inside of the pipe, but it's a little bit harder to use accurately. So I'm going to go down, measure 1.75 inches, and then zip that off with the multi-tool. When I said I had more access down here, it's not a lot still, that's for sure. Just kidding, I couldn't quite get all the way to the back side because there's some framing down there, so I am going to use my inside pipe cutter to finish this out. I just got to trim this off flush first. I didn't learn about these until recently, and it just is such a great idea, so simple. Just had never thought about it. There's many situations in the past where I could have used this. Just didn't even know it was a tool that existed. There's only like 1.5 inches that still needs to be cut, so I'm just going to sort of connect those dots. Always got to deburr. Can't forget that important step. Do not want to leak out of this joint here. That is for sure. I'm going to dry fit this again. See how everything lines up. Should be just fine. Then I need to mark out a little spot that we have to trim off the pan. That looks beautiful. When I originally laid out the rough plumbing in this bathroom, I marked our 48-inch shower pan width, but completely forgot to accommodate the width of the curb, which is about 4 inches wide. This would not be a big deal, except right underneath me is a toilet flange here. So there's a code minimum distance from the center of the toilet to nearby obstructions. And I had a good roomy 18 plus inches, I think, with that in. Well, this takes it down to like 16. I believe code minimum is 15. The shower glass door that we're gonna put in here will be centered on the curb. So yeah, from the glass door to the center of the toilet, we're looking at about 16 inches. That's a little bit tighter than I'd like it. So what I'm gonna do is split the difference a little bit, and I'm gonna modify this pan a little bit to take 1 inch off of the width of it. That'll give me 17 inches to the glass door roughly, which will be about the same gap as to the vanity on the other side of the toilet. So it'll kind of feel and look normal. Set my saw blade to the same depth as the rabbet that's already cut out. That exactly the same. Now I'm thinking I can do this cut with a long razor blade. This is just EPS foam. This is going to give me the cleanest option. I'm trying to do a cut with the circular saw with the pan on its side. Might take a couple passes here. I think it's going to work. Let's fit our curb. Cool. I think I like the utility knife better. Just gives me more precise cuts. We don't need to worry about depth. All right, we're dry fit again. You can see we are back now an inch from our original line. Curb fits nicely on our new rabbeted joint. We are ready to go. Time to clean this thing off and get this pan set. Floor is vacuumed and clean. Let's get this thing glued down. Here is our thin set mortar, LATICRETE 254 Platinum. It's a white polymer modified thin set. It's pretty good all-purpose stuff, but we don't need the whole bag. This says this covers 60 to 70 square foot with a 1/4 by 3/8 inch notch trowel, which is what I'll be using for the pan. So I'm going to mix up a smaller quantity. Any quantities less than the full bag, it's 3.6 parts powder to 1 part water, and I'll be using this coffee cup to be my measuring device. I'm gonna end up using about half a bag, so I'm just gonna measure out separately the powder and the water, because you're supposed to add the water to the bucket first. But I don't know how many cups of powder is about half the bag, so 1 cup, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12. All right, that looks to be about half the bag. By my calculations, 12 cups divided by 3.6 parts powder to 1 part water would give us 3 1/3 cups of water. 1, this is a separate bucket. 2, so that the water can be put in before the powder. 3, it's gonna be a little bit of an eyeball. Now we are ready to mix. I think the idea behind putting the water in first is you don't get clumps of dry tile adhesive on the bottom of the bucket where you can't get it out. Now, I was talking to the LATICRETE tech support guy here in our locality. He said that for these shower pans to mix it a little bit on the loose side. So I've got a little bit of water that we can add during this first mix. It's important though not to add water after it's already starting to set up. But in this first mix, we can add a little bit. Not as much water as you'd think would go in here. Here's the mixer I'm using, Harbor Freight Special, my cordless drill. Geez, this stuff's pretty thick. About to burn my drill out. I can assure you my little DeWalt cordless drill did not like that, but it got the job done. Now we're supposed to let this sit for 5 to 10 minutes to sort of set up, and we'll come back, do one more little remix, and then it's ready to go. My timer for 7 minutes went off, ready for one last little mix, and we'll be ready for action. Oh my gosh, if my drill can take it. I need to get my big drill here. Oh geez, she's smoking. Might be mixing this one by hand. Don't want to waste any of this. This is premium stuff. Now that it smells like a burnt drill motor in here, let's start spreading our tile adhesive out. The instructions are to key it into the surface or just use the flat side of the trowel, scrape it along the side. We'll do the same thing on the underside of the pan. That'll make sure that we get really good adhesion to both the floor and the pan. We'll do our directional troweling on the floor though. Pretty big area, 4 foot by 6 foot. Have my arrows here anyway, but
Probably should have drawn a line for where that should stop with this. I added more water than the mix called for, but this doesn't seem that loose, honestly. It seems pretty stiff. I mean, it's not falling off the trowel. Hopefully this works. It's gonna be an interesting learning experience, no matter what. I don't know if I mentioned it, but this is the first time I've ever done anything like this. So I'm certainly not an expert. I'm definitely DIY status here. I feel like you kinda gotta work quickly on this. Make sure it doesn't skin over. We're keyed in. Now I'm gonna start slapping it on for some directional troweling. Trying to keep it all going the same way, just so all the ridges collapse nice and easy. Oh my gosh, the hard part is gonna be levitating over here. You almost need two trowels, one to help you scrape off and one to actually trowel with. I feel like knowing exactly how much to mix for a certain bit of work you want to get done is the hardest part. Something that experience definitely helps with. See how far this gets us. Almost had a total disaster there. I put the pieces in backwards, and thank goodness I did not step them in first before noticing. I saw the drain was like totally off center when I put these pieces down. I was like, what in the world is going on here? Then I realized, oh, cannot just cut an inch off and expect it to remain symmetrical. So I had to lift it all back up, trowel the directional trowels back out because they had just barely started to pick up, and re-key the back of the styrofoam because it was covered with ridge marks. I think we're reset now. If I would have stepped this in though, I don't know if I would have ever gotten this styrofoam back up because it really sticks. Really, really sticks down. So thankfully I had just sort of placed it just like this and had barely pushed it into place. I noticed, whoa, those rings did not line up, and they lined up perfectly before. So something must not be right. This is looking good. All right. I can confidently press this into place. Try to collapse those ridges. Have to get on it and walk on it a little bit. Seeing a little bit of squeeze out at the edges, which is all good. Squeeze out around the drain flange. Now, if I were to have done this before, there is not a chance in heck I could get the styrofoam up without breaking it. So it is a good thing everything fits. Drain is nice and centered. Kind of cool feeling how big the shower is going to be now. All right, now I'm going to go grab some thin set bags, put it on here for an hour or so while this sets up. This has been drying overnight. I'm gonna get all this weight off, protect the pan with some cardboard, and then start working on the Hydroband board that's gonna go on the walls. It's finally time to cover over the very last of the rock wool and start getting our Hydroband board up on the walls. Excuse the chicks in the background if you can hear them. We hatched a bunch of chicken eggs and their brooder is in the room right next door. Anyway, I put the niches in the wall. This is a 2x6 plumbing wall, so this one fit really well, snugly up against the 2x4 blocking that I put in. This one, however, has a slight gap between the flange and the wood. It's about 1/8 of an inch, and that is because I had to plane down these studs. While this was all still open framing, I came through with my level and set it across these studs to make sure they were in plane, and they were not even close. I had to take like 1/8 of an inch off both of these center studs, and there's drywall on the other side of the wall. And the other side of this wall is the dining room, so this cavity became less than 3.5 inches deep. It's like 3 3/8 after planing these studs down a little bit. This white part on the niche is exactly 3.5 inches. It's molded. So the only way to fix this is going to be either take thickness off the drywall or off the back of this niche, and I think it's gonna have to be the niche. I've measured it. This back wall is 1/2 inch thick, so I'm gonna take 1/8 of an inch off the whole back of this. It doesn't matter whether it's new construction or remodel. It's probably more often in remodel, but there's little situations like this all the time where you have to do weird stuff in order to get stuff to fit right. This 1/8 of an inch gap probably would float out with the tile, but I want to set myself up for tile with the best foundation possible, a nice flat surface. I don't want to hump around the edges of this niche, especially because I'm going to have profiles lining the cutouts of this. So I don't want the tiles going into those profiles to be sitting on a hump. That's just going to be not ideal. So the plan for thinning this guy out is scoring it with my circular saw. I already set it to 1/8 of an inch deep. That'll give me sort of some guide marks, and then using my planer to take the back surface of this off. Probably can honestly run this saw like sideways through this. It eats through the foam easy. I think that's called the Polish plane method. Let me give it a shot. Well, it does work. Makes a heck of a mess though. See if the planer does any better. Probably not. I think that does a good job actually. Probably should be wearing a mask for this. Let me go get a mask. Looks like it snowed in here. I'll have to clean that mess up. But that was all she needed. That was easy enough with the planer. It sits nice and flush now to the stud, so it should plane out perfectly with the board. To set this niche in place, I'm going to use some of the Hydro Band adhesive and sealant around the perimeter, then come back with some of the Hydro Band screws. They're 1 5/8" long. They look a lot like fine thread drywall screws, but they are ceramic coated, so they're good for moisture rated applications like in a shower. I'm going to put a little on the sill too, because why the heck not? I've started using a drill more often instead of my impact for screws that I want to make sure that I don't overdrive. This would be a good application of one. I don't want to put one of these screws like right through the thumb or anything. So that drill can give you a nice countersink, very controllable, more so than the impact. Niches are in, now it's time to do the wall board. I'm gonna start on this back wall here. It's the one that's probably the most critical because we're doing super large format tiles, 24 by 48 tiles, and they're gonna be on their sides going up. So I need to make sure this is nice and flat. And of course, I already did that when we had just bare framing. Now is really not the time to correct that kind of thing. When this was all framing, of course, I did the side walls and the back wall, had a 6-foot level up against it, make sure it was good. So now it's just a matter of getting these boards on here and not letting my Siga and insulation push them out of alignment, keeping them nice and flat and straight. This is a 6-foot wide shower. The boards are 3 foot by 5 foot. So to best lay them out, I went through a couple different possibilities, but I'm gonna break them on this stud right here. So I'll have kind of a skinny strip going up that way and 3 large panels here. We have the ceiling fur down to 9 feet. So this is just under 9 feet. It'll work really well. I'll just have to trim a little bit off the top panel. Here's how this will sit. We just need to put a bead of sealant in the little rabbet joint at the pre-sloped base, set this guy in, and then screw it in with the same screws I used for the niche. I'll start the screws 1 foot up from the pan. I believe that's in the instructions. And then every 8 inches after that. These dots make it kind of easy. They're 2 inches apart each. So every 5 dots, is that right? 2, 4, 6, 8, yeah. Every 5 we'll get a screw all the way up to the ceiling. It's a little tough with the Siga here, but it works. I think putting the sealant in is a little bit of a precautionary measure. They just want you to take to give you sort of one last line of defense if any water gets past your liner. I still will be using the thin-setted waterproof band at the bottom of the pan above the liner. However, they do approve this to be used in these shower systems as the sole sealing method. You can do a whole shower with just this Hydro Band sealant and it's rated to work well. However, it will not work in steam showers. That's the only difference. All right. Beautiful. The dots are a nice indicator for the studs too. Didn't even really think about that. Make sure you have a nice straight line down so you don't miss the stud. All right, so I'm coming about a foot up, 6 dots or so for the first guy. I might need to go lower if my Sega is pushing out too hard. Or start using a couple of those tab washers. LATICRETE has these metal tab washers to go with these screws. I thought I needed them, but then I realized that they only actually need them on ceilings, but they might come in handy if I need to get this flatter. I'm just doing a slight little countersink, and then we'll be able to go over these guys with sealant. I really like the grid pattern. It just makes you get a nice clean screw pattern. Really like having the dots. Every butt joint gets a nice bead between them. Okay, there is the back wall done. That was easy enough. I troweled out all the excess squeeze out. That's what the white lines are, but we still need to go over all of it again with another bead so that there's at least 2 inches of overlap on each panel. I'll do that though once the side walls are done too, so I can do it all at one step. All the screw heads also get coated with a little bit of Hydroband sealant as well.
Too short to play it on speed run. Only get one, no option to rerun. Where Babylon goes, who hide to reach them. Down to earth, stay grinding when storms come. Rat race, only one to run from. Better say cheese, but say split in the funds. Living in the moment, I ain't worried about none.
Here's the very last view of the memory box we're putting in the wall behind this shower niche. Just up and to the right of the left shower niche. If somehow in like 100 years someone comes to tear the shower apart, they'll find that. Elena hand wrote a letter to the future owner in there. There's a bunch of pictures of us building the house and a bunch of pictures of Elena's grandfather building his house as well. Elena made a reels on this if you want to dig back through our Instagram post so you can see the details. Just like that, we have ourselves a boarded up shower. It is not fully waterproof yet because I got to go back over all the seams. So time to get off to the races, sealing all these screw heads, troweling out another bead of sealant over all of the seams around each niche and getting it truly waterproof so that we can move on to the floor, doing the drain flange and the curb. I've only done one shower surround before in my life and it was with cement board. And I can tell you for sure that this is so much easier to deal with than the cement board. So much lighter, less dust, easy to cut with a razor blade. It is like just a much easier product to work with, and the waterproofing's built in. With the cement board, I had to go over it. It added another step of labor to paint all over all that cement board again to get the waterproofing component. The cement board is really rigid, so it gives you really solid backing for the tile. In between the studs, the foam board, the 1/2 inch foam board is not quite as stiff, but I don't think it's gonna really matter in the grand scheme of things once you have tile on. I'm sure LATICRETE's tested all the deflection limits and how it affects tile and stuff like that. But simply for the ease of installation, this is so much better. And the sealant method between the joints is something I think a little bit unique to LATICRETE. I don't believe Schluter has anything like that. They require you to do the band, the Curdy band around all of the joints, which requires mixing up thin set, and it's more buildup that you're gonna have to deal with when you go to tile. I like the LATICRETE system because it allows you to do this sealant. I feel like some people might be a little skeptical of it, but I feel like they've done their homework, and especially on the vertical surfaces where it's not as exposed to constant water or full-time submersion, I don't think it's gonna have any issue at all. On the floor joints, they do allow you to use the sealant as well, but I'm going to use the band there, the pre-made corners in the band, just for a little extra layer of security and waterproofing there because it's the shower pan, and that will have quite a bit more contact with water. But I've seen some tile pros on YouTube doing the same system with Hydroband at the base joint too, with no worries about it. So I trust it's gonna hold up just fine for us. All right, so I'm just gonna hit all the screw heads first, work my way up on each wall. Now the horizontal seam. I think they say they want 2 inches of overlap on each board. It's quite a bit actually. So you definitely gotta be generous with the caulk. When this stuff dries, it's really elastic, which is good, so that it can still stay steeled if the boards move a little bit, which of course they always will as the building moves. So that is not 2 inches. I have to add a little bit more. I have to check if it was 2 inches wide total or 2 inches on each panel. 4 inches wide total. Might be 4 inches total. That's what I would guess. Can't imagine any water's getting in that joint. And it's nice and flat for when we go to put the tile on. I realized I actually had a tool to make this easier, which is a ribbon bead nozzle made by Albion. You can adjust it to extrude between a 2 to 4 inch flat bead of sealant, which is perfect for this application. So it gets you that full 4 inch width. A lot easier than doing it with a single nozzle. So that's one whole side done. However, these are my last 2 tubes of sealant. I'm gonna need some for along the curb down here to set that in place. So I'm gonna take a break on the wall sealing for now and get this curb set so I can make sure I don't run out. I can always use the regular band for these remaining joints. I have a whole roll of that, so that'll be my backup, but I do not have more Hydroband sealant on me. Before I set the curb where my knees are, I wanted to get this drain flange installed so I'm not fighting the curb the whole time. This is a tile in drain flange, so it comes with this stainless steel plate that you actually tile right on top, and you have a pretty seamless looking drain when it's all said and done. They've recently upgraded the design on this from what I understand, so this is sort of like their new version. And I've found from dry fitting it, it actually needs to go down a little bit further. I think they didn't update their instructions when they switched to this tile in flange. So I measured it out. I need to cut another 3/4 inch off the pipe for this thing to sit down where it's supposed to be. And then once I have this in, this obviously gets glued to the pipe, thin setted to the pan. And then once this is in, the liner will go on top. That gets all thin setted in and sealed up to that. And then when I'm ready to tile, this guy goes on top of the liner and I run the tile right across. They've made the thicknesses so that everything will plane out evenly when this is all installed so that there's no seam when we lay the tile over this plate relative to all the rest of the tile. So let's break out the pipe cutter again, get this thing cut off 3/4 inch lower, and we can get our drain grate on. All right, we're cut. Still need to deburr. Let's give it a test fit. Oh yeah. It's way, way better. So then we'll just fill this void underneath this up with thin set. It'll have a nice solid base. We'll be ready to flood test after we get our liner and curb on. Plugging this drain might be a fun challenge though. Might have to get one of my big plugs out to put it in here. Plugging this drain is definitely going to be tricky. I was just looking at this a little closer. It's got these 4 little lips in here. I think if there was an 1.5 inch pipe, it would come all the way up to these lips. This is a standard 2-inch test plug, and it fits in fine, but the top of that 2-inch pipe sits below where the plug is going to be. So the plug won't reach the top of that 2-inch pipe, and the gap here is too large for my 2-inch to seal against, even when I crank it down tight. So I might need to get like a ball plug to do this drain test. We'll see. All right, mixed a couple scoops of thin set up. See if this is enough. Like there's no great way to really spread it around this. So my dry fit looked good. I got my PVC glue ready. So as soon as I fill this up with thin set, I should more or less be able to just glue the pipe, glue the flange, press that baby down, and get all this thin set to squeeze out. I'd like to go like in a circle like this. I feel like that'll give me the best coverage. It squeezes. Got primer and glue on tap. This is the scary part because you can't go back once all this time-sensitive stuff is mixed up. Got one shot, one opportunity. Seize everything you ever wanted. One moment. Did you capture it? Just let it slip. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. This looks like some sort of spaghetti machine. Get plenty of squeeze out, that's for sure. I think she's bedded in there real well. Cool. Just scrape all this off. Let her dry and we got a drain flange, folks. Might as well use that extra adhesive. I'm going to throw on one of these mixing valve seals. I have to trim out a little bit because there's a lip on the back of this guy that protrudes. So I'm going to trim a little bit out of my hydro band and then trowel this guy on. Should be pretty simple. I might even have enough to do both mixing valve seals. That would be pretty cool. Now all this sheet membrane stuff gets a V-notch trowel. A little bit smaller than the standard 1/4 by 3/8 I was using. Probably should trowel all this the same direction for best practice sake. Beautiful. Used up almost all the thin set. That's all I got left. The moment of truth. This really wasn't the moment of truth because I screwed up and put the seal in backwards. The cone part is supposed to be going into the wall instead of out. All the packaging shows the cone facing outwards, which I assumed was the front. Unfortunately, there were no explicit instructions that came with this, and despite researching how all the other parts went in, I didn't do any homework on these seals. I'm going to leave them as is because taking them off would damage the board underneath, and they shouldn't see much water anyway because they're not directly beneath the shower head. We'll just have to be extra careful sealing the escutcheon plate over the tile, which honestly is all that most showers get anyways. With that drain flange in, now we can start on the curb. It is a sectional 3-piece foam curb. It's got a little 1/2 inch lip cut into it so it engages perfectly with the shower pan, and then they're keyed so that they engage with each other as well. This is going to get thin setted down to the floor, and then also a bead of sealant is going to go in this little rabbet joint up against the pan. When I first dry fit these guys, I noticed they weren't sitting quite flat on the floor, the whole base wasn't. It was because the pan sits up just about a 1/16, 1/8 of an inch in some places because of the layer of thin set underneath of it. So I had to come back with the razor and skim about a 1/16 off the top of this lip so that the curb was firmly sitting on the floor and not at an angle outwards, especially because you don't want the water to drain out of the shower. If anything, the curb should be angled slightly inwards, or the tile on top of it should, so that the water runs into the shower instead of out onto your bath floor. One thing I wanted to make a note of, before I started any of this shower system, I went through all the directions for all of the different products and all of LATICRETE's videos and gave myself sort of a layman's term note of what steps I should follow and like what makes the most sense to do before one thing or the other. Like I wanted to set that drain before I did this curb so that I'm not sitting on top of this curb. Obviously get the wall panels up before I do any of that so I'm not trampling all over this doing all the wall panels. And I put their very technical directions into more layman's term directions that I can quickly reference and see what the next step I have to do is. There's so many sequential steps in a system like this. I feel like it really helps to put that together ahead of time to sort of wrap your brain around what has to happen and what order it's got to happen in. The rough framing in this room is 72 inches wide or 6 foot, but because of the 1/2 inch thickness of the drywall / hydro band on either side, we're gonna have to cut about 1 inch off this guy. So I'm just gonna mark this where it needs to get cut. Actually, I need to trim that off the other side because that's the side that is flat and needs to go into the wall. This needs to keep its key to engage with that key right there. I like these extendable razors for stuff like this. Otherwise, it would be too thick to do this with a normal razor blade. It only sticks out 1 inch or so. All right, let's give that a shot. Nope, still too tight. Before I glue this curb in place, there's one more modification I need to make in order to accommodate our radiant flooring in the future. We're doing radiant floor in the shower as well as on the main bath floor. In the shower, primarily just to dry the floor out, and we've heard it keeps grout stains down. So we're gonna try it. We have the chance now, it's the time to do it. However, LATICRETE doesn't have a ton of info out there on doing shower floor radiant heat. I guess it's something relatively new for them. So I called their tech support and they gave me some guidance on the layering. The most important thing is the waterproofing goes down first and then the strata mat on top of that with the wire in it. It's actually the opposite of what Schluter's recommendation is. The technical reason was that the waterproofing mat that LATICRETE uses is much thicker than what Schluter uses, and it will trap all the heat if you put the waterproofing over top of the wire. So I'll lay the waterproofing mat first and run it over the curb. And the tricky part though is getting the wire into the shower. My thermostat is all the way against that wall, it's that box there. That wall is 10 feet from the shower, and then that thermostat's 5 foot up. There's a hot-cold transition in the wire that's supposed to be in the shower floor according to the tech service guy. I'm not gonna have enough length for that. He said that usually electricians install a junction box or something. I am not doing that. I'm going to put the hot cold lead in the bathroom floor, wherever it lands, and then I'll have to run the heated lead up and over the curb and into the shower. It's not technically approved by LATICRETE. The tech services guy said you shouldn't run the heated wire vertically at all, but there's no other great way to get it into my shower. His recommendation was somehow poke it through the wall. Like if you can get the cold lead into the wall, people, I guess, will just poke the wire through the wall right at the level of the heated floor mat and seal around it with liquid flash. I guess that works, but I do not have that set up right now. So I'm going to sort of do a hybrid approach. My wire is gonna run about right here where this pencil line is. I gotta be at least 2 inches from the wall or my base trim. That's what that little mark is there. And I was gonna route it out here and then realized that, so I shifted it over. Another thing to pay attention to is cable bend radius. They advertise a 1 inch minimum bend radius, so instead of just doing a sharp 90 up, I'm gonna come up, route this little 45-degree channel in here, up and over the curb, and then do something similar on the back side, coming down so that wire can just have more of a gradual bend. The sharpest bends are gonna be right up over top of the lip here. Here's what that would look like in cross-section view with the pencil line representing the wire. I'll probably try to carve a little bit of a radius there to keep the wire as smooth bending as possible and not sharp. I'll use the router just with this flat cutout bit to make this little channel. I'm gonna do it like 3/4 inch wide by about 1/4 inch deep. The curb is much thinner on the front than it is on the top or the shower side. So 1/4 is definitely the max that I can go on this with. This is like a 1/2 inch thick. I can maybe bump it up to like 3/8 on these two sides. Then once I roll my waterproof sheet on, I'm hoping I can kind of press it down into that groove I made, use some hot glue or something to temporarily affix the wire into that groove, and then encase the wire in thin set so it's got some sort of heat transfer medium. That's the biggest, most important part, is the wire cannot be left just out in the open air or in foam or anything like that. It's gotta have something with thermal mass so it can transfer heat and it will not burn itself up or melt itself. My goal is to not have to puncture that waterproof membrane. If I can get that waterproof membrane up and over the curb but still leave enough of a void for that 3/16 thick wire to sit down in there and I can still get tile flush with the surface. That is best case scenario. But that membrane is pretty stiff, so if I can't push it down in the void, I might have to end up cutting it. And in that case, I'll have to re-flash around everything with some sealant. That router does a really nice job. Super clean. Didn't get too deep there on the front edge. That'll work. Finally ready to get this thing going. I struck a line so I know where the curb's gonna end. That's where I'll mud to. Oh, I need to vacuum this out real quick to make sure it's nice and clean. It's pretty clean. I think I'll just do kind of one section at a time. All I need to do is put a bead of sealant in this rabbet joint up against the wall here and then thin set the floor. And then I can't forget to key this in the bottom of this guy too before I set it. Oh no. Got thin set on the handle of my trowel. I feel like the hardest part is moving the thin set from the bucket to where you need it. Troweling, it's no problem. Oh, I kind of forgot I need to kind of key into the OSB too. All right, it's a new day. My curb has set. It's nice and dry, really solid and sturdy. I like that. And last night before I wrapped it up, I decided to pre-cut all of my next waterproofing components, which is the corners and the band. It was the most tricky around the curb here. We have an outside corner, an inside corner, and the band that all sort of meet together. The corners are a little bit taller out of the package, so I had to trim them to fit to the height of the curb. And then this is how I'm gonna deal with my little heat channel. I think this guy will just be able to bend in here and I'll be able to kind of crease that in there. When I roll the full liner over top of all this, I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to get that same level of crease in this groove, so I might need to cut that and then use my sealant and just totally re-waterproof this whole channel so that we have a waterproofed channel that the cable can then ride over top and down into the strata mat. So we got our inside corner, our outside corner, sits like so, and then the band, I tried to pre-crease it as best as I could, but it doesn't crease super well. And I don't need to run the band all the way to the corner, it's too much overlap, just 2 layers is all, and they're looking for 2-inch minimum. So I'm gonna start with the corners in the band. That's actually what the instructions even recommend, is to do that. And then I'll take my liner and roll that. I'll start at the back and work my way forward and roll that up and over top the curb. I'll cut out that channel as I need to when I go. All of these membrane components are getting adhered with 254 Platinum thin set with a 1/4 by 3/16 notch trowel. And once I get that liner on, I'll cut out a hole in the middle for where the drain is. I'll just feel where it's at and cut that out too. Once all that's cured and I waterproof my little channel for the radiant heat wire, we should be ready to flood test. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I did go up about a foot with what sealant I had left to make sure that vertical inside corner was waterproof before I put this band on. I do have another case of the Hydroband tubes that I'll finish all of the waterproofing at the seams, and I was able to hit all the screw holes as well. But it's in the barn at my mom's house, so I have to go get that yet. So I just wanted to get the pan waterproofing done since I had everything here. All right, I'm gonna start with the hardest corner first. One with this dang notch in it. A lot of detail work in this tile. We're not getting into the tile yet. Here goes nothing. So, can I get this thing to squeeze the heck in here? No, I guess it's working out. It's getting in there. If it didn't, my backup plan was to use some of that heat mat on top of the curb to sort of retain the wire there, but if I don't have to do that, I'd rather not. Hard to get it to pull the air out without lifting it out of the corner. I don't think that turned out too bad. When I pushed this in, it had to pull this top down a little bit. That material had to come from somewhere, but it'll all be overlapped with the outside corner, so I think that'll work. And there we are with the outside. That seemed to work okay. We'll see how it goes with the full sheet membrane on it when I put the liner down. And I've already got a head start on this guy. This one's easy, just a standard inside corner, no trimming or anything. right, corners are done. Same procedure for the band. Little key in, trowel out, press it in. This shower system was something I kind of dreaded to do to start, to be honest. I'm not really a tile guy by any means. It's not very hard when you get started, but the more I do it, the more I kind of like it. It takes a lot of attention to detail, which is what I like. The number one thing I don't like is the mixing of the thin set. Like, I hate mixing compounds that have a limited window of use, but I've learned to mix small batches only, and I'm getting better at estimating how much I need for little things. Like, I'm just using an empty pineapple can to measure out my thin set for these little tasks. I think I only use 2 pineapple cans of powder for these bands and these corners. I'm trying not to waste it because it's really nice thin set, really expensive. So my goal is to have less than a baseball size of waste for every batch that I mix. I'm guessing you're supposed to fill these little squares up. That's what I'm doing. I don't think you'd want to leave them open and hollow. Got all the banding in. We are finally ready for the liner. So I got to mix up a bigger batch of mortar for that. Really tried to keep the banding nice and tight up in the corners. Troweled everything as flat and smooth as I could to the wall and the floor pan so we don't build up too much mud, causing us issues when it comes to tiling. Here is the sheet membrane that was supplied with the pan. It was given a little bit oversized, but it was the right width. They just give it to you a little bit longer in case you want to wrap it over the curb, which is what we're going to be doing. So I already measured and pre-cut this to come all the way across the pan, up, over, down, and end just above the bottom edge here. I also just vacuumed off all of the foam to get any bits of dirt or dry bits of mortar from the banding off. Now I just need to mix some more mortar up, trowel it all one way. My game plan is to do the whole back half of the shower first. That way I can access easily and kneel up in here in the front, get the liner started and work my way forward all the way out to the curb. That way I don't have to get back on the liner while the thin set's still wet. I'm thinking 6 pineapple cans worth of mortar should do this whole bit with the 3/16 V-notch. It does not use a whole lot of mortar using that trowel. All right, there's what 6 pineapple cans worth of mortar looks like. I think it's gonna be easiest just to time lapse through this because it's gonna be a heck of a lot of me bent over, troweling, keying into this foam mat, screeding it all out. Tile contractors must just be permanently hunched over from the amount of time spent on their hands and knees doing this job. It is just painstaking on the back. This is definitely one of the reasons tile is so darn expensive, because it's a heck of a lot of labor and it's pretty hard on your body too. Not only is it just being hunched over, but like my feet, from being on my knees and like sitting on my feet and my toes, my feet are really sore too. No one told me that about tile. So I'm looking forward to when we get to wall tiling where I can actually stand upright and put the tile in. Holy smokes, my knees and back are feeling that now. That was a bit of a project getting that on, especially because I'm inexperienced and slow, but I think it all turned out okay. It sat nicely in and around the drain, just kind of sat down in there. Before I cut this out, it was interesting. As soon as I laid it down, it was airtight. So I could like press on this little membrane like a drum, and I could hear the water in the trap going up and down and pulsing because it was the air pressure was just moving the water down in there. But as soon as I cut that open, it was all good. Everything went in pretty smoothly. I had to trim a little bit off this one edge over here just because I didn't really account for the thickness built out of those bands. So I was pretty tight before, within 1/8 of an inch, and so that band made me had to trim off about 1/4 inch. It probably wasn't completely square, so that also had something to do with it, but I had to just trim about 1/4 inch off that. It was all good. And here's how my little detail for the wire turned out. I just had to kind of slit this on one side. I was able to fold the membrane down in there so it's not totally open down here. And the same deal right here. I just had to cut it at this one side, and then I can just seal this all back up with the Hydroband adhesive out of the caulk tube, and I should be good to go. I guess as a last measure of safety, after I put the wire in and thin set it in, I could also even put another little Hydroband band here and just slit that where the wire comes out. That might be overkill though. If this passes the flood test, once I seal this all up, I really should be good to go because the waterproof layer won't get disturbed after that. It's just gonna get laid on top of. I have a decent amount of thin set left. I did have to mix up 5 more pineapple cans worth. I probably could have made that like 3.5. But I do have a few more thin set things to do. I don't want to walk on this right now because I do need to do the pipe seals around my shower heads. There's two little seals similar to the mixing valve seal. It's not going to use up very much. But I'm going to throw a band at this drywall to Hydroband board transition. This was a question that I had when I was starting this project that I really did not find a ton of information on, is how to treat these seams. And I'm going to do something differently for both of my seams. This right seam is pretty much right at the transition of where the door is going to be meeting the curb. It's really just on the other side of the center of the curb, and the door is going to be like right here. So I'm going to go ahead and put some waterproofing band on this. That'll extend the waterproofing out at least to like the level of the edge of the curb. We'll probably be running tile to the edge of that curb too. And my biggest question I had was what adhesive to use on this, because you have this Hydroband board and sheetrock. This has got drywall mud on it already. And I want to have that painted surface run right up to the edge of the tile. I don't want there to be some weird transition where there's like some thin set there. So I talked to the LATICRETE technical guy a little bit about it. And what we came up with was just to use the Hydroband band, the same band that I use in the corner there, embed it with thin set so it sticks to this, and you'll get a little bit of thin set adhesion to the drywall over here. Then I'll come back and feather it out with regular gypsum based drywall mud to the point at which the tile will stop. So I'll probably strike a line right on the inside of where the tile will stop. We can run the tile out just past where the band stops, and then it'll have a nice smooth transition to painted surface. My other seam is a little bit further outside the shower just because of the way the studs were lined up. This one is far enough outside the shower that I think I'm just going to treat this almost like a regular drywall seam, where I'll just use all gypsum based mud, and I'll bring that mud all the way back to where the tile is going to stop, because obviously the Hydroband board's got this fuzzy texture on it and it's not going to paint the same as the drywall, and I want them to look the same. The only difference for this joint though is I'm going to use this stuff right here. This is fiber mesh tape, alkali resistant, adhesive backed, just basic cement board tape. This was really cheap. I'll stick that tape centered all the way up and down the seam, and then just use regular gypsum based mud to feather out to where the tile is going to be. Just to clarify, you could apply either the sheet membrane or fiber tape embedded in thin set at these joints. With the fiber mesh tape though, you'll have the extra step of liquid waterproofing the area that could still get wet. The key is just to make sure there's a waterproof layer anywhere there will be water on the wall. Well, that guy's on, and I still have a little bit of mortar left. So I'm gonna go ahead and install the pipe seals. These are 3/4 inch pipe seals for our shower heads. This is a really snug fit. This is a pretty small hole for this thing to go through. So I wanted to install this first and then slide the gasket over top of it, rather than try to put this in and try to locate it with Teflon tape and pipe dope on it through this little hole and into my threaded outlet. Instead, I'll just remove my brass plug here, clean that out really well, and then reapply Teflon tape and pipe dope, screw that in, kind of center it up straight, and then get my gasket slid over. I'm not sure how necessary these really are for regular showers. I think for steam showers it's more of a thing, because obviously water should not be getting up there above the height of where the water comes out of the shower head. But I figure we're this far, we might as well use all the pieces of the system and make it a complete waterproof install. I can't remember if there's going to be water behind this or not. I have it turned off, but I think I did test this with water. Man, this thing is cranked in there. Come on. Holy smokes. Please don't be water behind here. Okay, we're good. we're Gucci. Tape and pipe dope is what I found to be the winning combo. Getting a nice tight seal. These are tricky because you never know where the last turn should be. It's like, can I make it one whole other turn or should I stop here? Because these are not the most, sturdy things. They're pretty delicate. So I want to make sure that we don't have to turn it again because that could compromise the seal. Can I make it one more turn? That is the nice thing about the pipe dope. I feel like it gives you a little bit extra security if it's not, unbelievably tight. This is a shower, so it's not like this is a high pressure joint. There's never actually any real pressure at this joint, but it does not mean that it's not able to leak. Should I go one more turn? I hope I don't regret it. I'm gonna go one more. I think we can do it. Yeah, one more is plenty. Okay, perfect. Pipe dope also acts as a nice little lubricant of sorts. It's looking pretty good. Okay, that's good. I think that's done. Put a little protective sleeve on her while I'm mudding this up because I don't want to get any mud on this. Jeez, this thing's a stretch. Oh my gosh. That is, and it went over. Wow. Yep, no water getting around that. We put way too much mud on. These things are really tiny compared to the mixing valve. Now it's time to put the finishing touches on this with the sealant at my little notch here before the flood test. By the grace of Elena, she brought the next box of tubes over, so now I have plenty to finish the job. I'll be able to hit these seams that I wasn't able to get before, so the corners, these guys right here, and the very bottom of this niche. I think I'm just gonna end up making a whole channel full of this stuff. It's gonna take a little bit of shaping. All right, that's how that turned out with a little bit of finesse. I think that'll work. Might hit it again just once more before the flood test. Just give it a little smear coat with a gloved finger or something like that. When I was vacuuming things out, I actually noticed a spot where there, I guess, did not get thin set squeezed out. It was smaller than this, but I ran my finger under it to open it up a little bit. I'm going to mix a little bit of thin set up and shove it under that thing and try to smooth that out, get that back to where it should be, because that is a potential spot for water to get underneath there and leak, so that's not good. Got this little area fixed up with some thin set. That should be good to go. After now having done both the banding and the sealant method for sealing at the seams, I can tell you the sealant is way easier. The band is just kind of a pain having to work with the thin set, trowel it all out, get it all nice and smooth, and then even still it's a much thicker buildup of thickness with the band versus the sealant, and it's gonna be a pain when it comes to tile on. I guess most of it can get soaked up in just the thickness of the mortar or the adhesive when you apply it for the tile, but overall having a nice flat smooth surface to work on is all the better. So not only does the sealing go way quicker, I feel like it's gonna be easier to tile on top of it. And I've been doing more thinking about how I'm going to plug this pipe, which is down in there, and my O-ring will not reach the pipe down there. So I need to get a 2-inch version of this guy to go down in that pipe. And of course my local Home Depot doesn't have one, so I'm gonna have to figure that out tomorrow if I want to flood test tomorrow. But I figure I'll at least finish all of the waterproofing, so it's all said and done, ready to flood test, and the only thing I need to get is that test plug tomorrow. We can put water in this thing. It's been a day since I put the liner in. Thankfully, I have an angel of a fiance who ran to Home Depot 20 miles away, a different Home Depot than we usually go to, and got their one single 2-inch inflatable test ball that they had in stock so that we can flood test this today. So that is ready to go, and I've got my air and a tire inflator to make sure I get this to the right pressure, and my hose hooked up down in the utility room. I figured this was easier than toting like 6 or 7 5-gallon buckets up here to fill this pan up. So I'm going to get this inflatable plug in, put a little water in the drain and test that just to make sure that it's sealing properly, because I have used these plugs once before and it leaked out all the air on me on my first try. So hopefully I don't have that experience again. Then I'll fill the rest of it with water and we will let this thing sit overnight. Don't let my cap fall into the drain. That wouldn't be good. Must inflate to 40 psi. Yep. All right, so all I got to check that. All I really have is the inflator itself, which is not super accurate, but we'll have to run with it. All right, I think I pulled that out at roughly 40 psi. It goes really quick because it's such a small volume of air. Let's put a little water in here, just a little water. I got it right up to that first ring there. I'm gonna let that sit for like 20 minutes and just see if it even moves. That should verify that the thing's actually sealing, but it looks pretty good. All right, 20 minutes later, service tension has not changed. I think the plug is holding well. Let's fill this thing up. Freeze! Something just feels wrong about this. I don't know why. Not that much different than an actual shower, I guess, but the fact that I'm just like spraying around in the bathroom where there used to be exposed rock wool. Good news is it looks like the slope of the shower pan is working. All the water is accumulating in the center before it's working its way out to the edges. This is the area I'm keeping an eye on because obviously that is where the water is going to overflow first, so we'll come right up to the edge of that. The dust has settled and it is just below, like you can't even see it because it's so clear. It is just below my little spillway here. So most of the vertical portion of the spillway can get tested. This is just under 2 inches of water because it's like a 2-inch high curb. I'm gonna do my best, if I can even see where it is, to leave a little marker line right at where it meets the water. Oh shoot, I got it in the water. Another trick that I saw on a Sal de Blasi video was to stack a bunch of stuff up in the shower until like one corner of it's just sort of peeking over the edge. In fact, he used a square, so I'm going to use a square. That gives you a little bit of a ramp, and then find something that's rectangular so that the corner of it sticks just past the surface of the water, and that way you can get a really precise look at if the water sinks, not relying on that chintzy marker line I just made. So this edge right there is just barely hanging out of the water, maybe a 1/2 inch or so of the edge exposed, maybe 3/4. If it's any much more than that tomorrow, we'll know we have a leak. Some water is going to evaporate, so if it's like negligibly smaller than that, it shouldn't be that big of a deal, but if it's like down to the level of the square down here, then that's a problem. One benefit of using the inflatable plug is that pipe joint in my drain is also tested. It's not plugged before it gets to the new PVC solvent joint, so that will be tested as well. We haven't closed up the ceiling below, so I can inspect to make sure that drain doesn't leak either when we drain all this water out. All right, we're not quite 24 hours past the flood test yet, but it's the next morning. I want to check out and see how this did. It's looking like we still have water in here. As far as I can tell, it looks exactly the same as it did yesterday. About 3/4, 1/2 inch, something like that, exposed right there. I think we're good. I'm going to call that a successful flood test. Even though we're not 24 hours yet, I want to get that downstairs ceiling wrapped up so we can get on to priming and painting down there. I'm really happy with this and we are ready for tile. Now this is going to be the best test of how well this shower drains and vents, because this is the most water that's ever going to come through here probably ever again at once. Oh gosh. Let's see how we fare here. If I can get the air to come out of this. All right, it's released. I think I can pull it up. Are we ready? This is going to test how well this drains. If this swirls down nicely, we know our vent is working. That's good. I don't see any bubbles. Nice. That's what you want to see right there. Wow. That's cool. It's a lot of water. Good news from below also. Everything looks nice and dry. No leaks that I can see. Perfect. Well, I am very pleased with that result. That is going to conclude the shower waterproofing, and we are looking forward to tile. Getting the bathroom looking like a bathroom. Hopefully this video helped you with your shower waterproofing project. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.